Welcome to the Tides Longino Show. I have a special guest from Color Change with us, Shannon Talbert, and we're going to be discussing the midterms 2018. It's a big year.
It should be. Thanks for having me, Taj.
Not a problem. Thank you. Now, kind of give the people a little bit about yourself and Color Change.
So I grew up in Atlanta, started organizing in 2007 on the Obama campaign, did some organizing in South Carolina, early primary state, moved on to Florida, a battleground state in the general election, and then I'm also a teacher, so I went back to teaching. I went overseas to the Middle East for a little while to do some organizing around girls' education and empowering women and moms to really take control of their daughters' education. And I had a lot of conversation with friends overseas living in an international community. You tend to see the news from an international perspective, and you see how things are portrayed. And a lot of my friends would always say, why are things so bad for Black people in America? And it wasn't just about Black people in America. It was Black people everywhere. But it was after year 5 that I kind of decided, all right, I've done enough here. I was having a great time. Things were very easy. But it was at the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement and seeing that from an international perspective that I wanted to come back home and do something for Black folks in my community and children that look like me. And so I came to Color Change PAC, and we were working on increasing Black voter participation in 2016 in battleground states to engage Black voters. And we were doing that through texting. Since then, we've expanded our program, and Color Change PAC is a political action committee. And we're focused on building independent Black political power. We want to amplify the voices of Black folks and elect candidates who share our values. And then after election, we work on the independent expenditure side. So that means we don't coordinate with candidates, but we want to hold them accountable to our communities. We are the political arm of the nation's largest online racial justice organization, and we're able to carry that even after the election, using our member power to ensure that the candidates that we elect, we're able to go back to them and say, you said you were going to do this for our people in our community, and we are not going to make it okay for you to disappoint Black people.
Okay. I want to start out with a question, because I know a lot of voters, we tend to have this thought process, president, 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 president. But we don't go back to vote for the people who helped the president get things passed or vetoed, what have you. Why is it such a challenge to get people to come out for the midterms?
Yeah, so we have a very cumbersome electoral process. It's a lot of dates to keep up with. It's a lot of things to make sure that you remember. And for the average person, they just don't remember. And so what we do is we try to make sure that we talk to Black voters early and often. We don't believe in only coming in the last couple of weeks. We believe in a hyperlocal strategy in which we believe in online to offline electoral organizing programs. So what that means is we might start by sending you an email and telling you about something, an issue that's happening in your community. But then we connect that to exactly who the decision maker is, and we're able to say, okay, this is the decision maker that controls this specific issue. This is why it matters to vote for them. And we do that at scale through our texting programs, through our door programs, and through our phone programs, making sure that Black voters who are, we call them sporadic voters, so they don't typically vote in every election cycle. They are not likely to know about all of the elections that are happening, but if we see it as our job to keep them informed and to know how this impacts them and their communities. And so through our electoral organizing program, we've been able to engage folks through brunches in a way that is, they're very low stakes. They want to come into a Black women's brunch. They want to come out to a Black people's brunch and be in a room full of Black joy. We really believe in empowering Black joy. So much of the media makes a case about our issues and tries to demean us in the media and put a negative connotation on who we are as a people. But we know that we are brilliant, we are radiant, and we try to showcase that through our programs. And so through those programs, we talk about what Black political power means to us. What does it look like? What will it look like when we're successful in creating a world where it is more tolerable for Black people? And through those programs, we connect with our community. We do some community building, getting back to the basics of knowing who's in your neighborhood, what are the services that are provided, really connecting with each other on a local basis, and then talking about how those local elected officials make an impact on our day-to-day lives.
What's at stake for people of color in this year's midterm elections?
Oh, there's a lot of it at stake. So Black voters are energized and motivated. I think what we're seeing is not just a blue wave in the face of Trump, but a Black wave. When you look at Andrew Gillum's win in Florida, there are more folks in Florida who are disenfranchised, and Amendment 4 is on the ballot. And so that is the right to restoring the right to vote for folks who've been convicted of a felony and are returning citizens. So giving over 1.6 million people in Florida the right to vote again. You've got Stacey Abrams in Georgia. You've got Wesley Bell in St. Louis, who was just elected to district attorney's office. And you've got Doug Jones in Alabama. And it just shows us the power of the Black electorate this cycle. And I think it is important. There's so many things across the country. You've got voting rights in Michigan, in North Carolina, in Nevada, and it's a referendum on the fact that, water is still in a crisis situation in Michigan. So I think there's a lot at stake for Black people, and criminal justice reform is always a big issue. Ensuring that we control the police in a way that is meaningful for our communities, and they do what they're supposed to do. They protect and serve and not destroy our communities. So there's a lot at stake, and I think Black voters are aware, and it's just up to us to make sure that we turn each other out to vote.
With this election being so huge, why are a lot of, and I'm doing this for a reason, because I'm trying to point out something to people who have this thought process of their vote doesn't count. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. It's already figured out. There's nothing we can do. What do you say to people who have a negative perception of what happens with the midterm elections?
I think in terms of Black voters are key to the Democratic Party's hopes this fall and in 2020. And for folks who are feeling that sense of hopelessness, I think that is where our program really connects with people, because we don't come at you with this really transactional level of saying you're just a vote to us, which is the way a lot of organizations approach our communities. They come in the last 2 weeks of the cycle and they're like, come on, get to the polls. And they have this sense that we're just automatically going to vote for the Democratic candidate. And that's not the case. Black voters want to know that they're important. They want to know that their issues matter. And I think that's what we have tried to do as a program, is to empower that sense of Black joy, to talk to Black voters. We did a lot of work in the beginning of the year just gathering a sense of the issues that our folks care about. And so that's why we're able to message on those issues now of exactly how this affects our communities. And if we're going to have any change, the change that we're looking for, the Black voters are going to be key to the Democratic Party's hopes this fall. Doug Jones could not have won, in terms without Black voters. Black women backed him by 98% in Alabama. But the Democratic Party has to do more to listen and respond to Black voters. We're demanding real action on criminal justice reform, and I think you're seeing that across the country when you look at the races of Wesley Bell in St. Louis. That was a referendum on Ferguson. And so just knowing that we want justice for our communities. We want our issues to matter. And so far, we've engaged in races in Texas, Missouri, California, North Carolina, We've got Stacey Abrams in Georgia. We did the primary there, and Andrew Gillum in Florida. In Michigan, we're looking at the governor's race, and it's same in Nevada. So I think it's really important for us as a community to talk to each other and talk to each other about our votes that matter. We look at this as a community building program, and that sense of hopelessness that we see is because for so long our communities have been left out. But when we started talking to our people early, there's a real connection there, and our members are coming out, they're knocking on doors, they're bringing their friends and family, and they're doing more than just coming to a brunch. They're actually coming out, they're making phone calls because they know how much is at stake. So I think it's really important that we continue to talk to each other and not force feed the vote. I think it's important to talk over time and build that sense of commitment to, okay, this is how we change things.
We hear every year that this is the most important election of your life. This time around, it seems a little different. Why is that so true in this particular midterm?
I think in terms of increasing political engagement in Black communities ahead of the 2018 midterm elections, people are able to see what's at stake. Trump has made that very obvious for us from the beginning, since the first day he took office, actually since before he took office. And we see that we just don't matter. Even in the process of this confirmation hearing, it's able. You're looking at the news commentary, and the average person is wondering, do they even care? Do they care about us at all? And so I think there are plenty of things that have happened throughout the course of this year that Black voters are hyper aware of the fact that these midterm elections are a referendum on Trump's presidency, but they are also a referendum on us as a community. Are we going to stand up for each other? I think we're hearing that through our, we've been doing a series of camps, of Camp COC, where we've been training our members and training Black folks at leadership events in key states in Florida, Michigan, and Nevada. And as we go through, we're hearing, all people want to know is, are we going to stand up for each other? How are we going to hold each other accountable? How are we going to make sure that our mom and our brothers and our sisters are at the polls, and not just at the polls on election day, but that they're out there early and that they're coming out to actually support our programs to make sure that the candidates that we know that will stand up for us and that we can hold accountable will actually be the people that we elect. So I think folks are hyper engaged. I think there's a real sense, but there's also that sense that, we have a lot of candidates who are on the ballot for us. There's Ben Jealous in Maryland. You have Stacey Abrams in Georgia. You've got Garland Gilchrist in Michigan for lieutenant governor, and you've got Andrew Gillum in Florida. I think people are seeing a chance to change what representation looks like, and not just have a seat at the table, but also have a chance to say, you come from these communities, we're able to hold you accountable afterwards.
What's been the response from the millennials in this particular? I know every generation has a group of community of the youth in every generation that comes up, and they participate in the politics. They want to know more. What's been the response and the involvement of the millennial generation?
Yeah, so we've partnered with NextGen, and they're connecting with students at historically Black colleges and universities in North Carolina and Florida to center Black youth and engage new communities. We had a great turnout at FAMU. We're expecting a record turnout at A&T, North Carolina A&T in Greensboro. Fayetteville State has been extremely engaged. So much so that we actually turn our program over to the students. We tell them what the program looks like, and we ask them to join us on a host committee, and we train them in how to lead the program themselves, and so much to the extent that we normally do a day of training. They asked us to do 2 days of training, and so we had to let them know, like, hey, our capacity only allows for a day of training, but it's been great to see how engaged they are and how much they care about turning out their peers for these midterm elections.
Okay, now you mentioned something earlier I wanted to touch on about felons' right to vote. Now, can you help us understand the laws when it comes to felons' right to vote?
Yeah, so in Florida, convicted felons do not have the right to vote after they have served their time. And, you know, that is an antiquated practice. After they've served their time, Amendment 4 states that it will re-enfranchise folks. It will give them a chance to vote and to ensure that 1.6 million people, that's really changing the face of the electorate. When you allow 1.6 million people who have not had the opportunity to vote after they've served their time and done what they were supposed to do for whatever wrongs that they committed, they deserve a second chance. And so this is giving us, this will really change what the electorate looks like if Amendment 4 passes in Florida.
All right, tell us why, like, all politics are local and why we should participate in every election.
Well, you know, at the heart of it, everything, especially as Black people, our lives are political. Everything that we do is looked at with some level of scrutiny, and so many things happen from our on a day-to-day basis. And so when it comes down to it, even things like your water commissioner, if you don't have somebody in office who is going to be responsible and accountable to you, then you're going to have problems no matter what. And so it's important to be engaged in our local elections. It's important to pay attention to the issues that are coming up because that can really change our communities. We were having this conversation just about, you know, whether or not musicians can play on the street, and joking about it. But, you know, that is something that your city council has the right to change if they wanted to. And so you may lose that cultural aspect of people busking on the side of the streets. And whether or not you want that, everybody has a say in those things. So paying attention to all of the things that are on the ballot are extremely important.
What's the easiest way to register to vote?
The easiest way to register to vote, one is checking your voter registration. So making sure we've got a voter registration tool on our site. So you can go to votingwhileblack.com and register to vote there. It'll connect you through to a page, and you can just check your voter registration and sign up, register to vote there.
How can we get out to vote effectively?
So, like, as you mentioned earlier, when you talked about elections being local, we talk about a hyperlocal strategy. And we really believe in organizing the people that you know. And so that is why our entire program is a program based on organizing your own networks. And being sure to have these conversations, these interpersonal conversations. Nobody knows your friends better than you do. You know their schedules. I know I talk to my best friend on a daily basis, and I'm like, hey, girl, did you go vote yet? You know, early voting is open for almost a month in a lot of places. It's not everywhere across the state, so I want to be very careful about across the country, but I do want to be very careful about saying that. But in most places, you have an early vote period. So there's some point in time when you can get out there and go vote. And so it's really important that we talk to each other, talk to our family members, and we check in on those things. The same way we want to make sure that folks got to their doctor's appointments or that our kids went to school, we want to make sure that our friends and family are going out to vote. And so it's really important to have those conversations, but also getting involved. We have a door program running in Florida, Michigan, and Nevada, which our local community teams have taken on the goals for their areas and their regions. So if there's ever a time to get involved, it's now, and folks can get involved by visiting us at votingwhileblack.com. And making sure that they come out to be a part of our local programs, be a part of the things that are happening. We have brunches and get out the vote events happening in Flint, in Lansing, in Michigan, in Detroit. And then we have events happening all across the state of Florida, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami. So there's a place to get involved, and we've got things happening in Nevada and Las Vegas as well. So making sure that folks take the opportunity to get involved and go out there and support the candidates they believe in. But more importantly, these elections are not about the candidates. These elections are about us and the issues that we care about. So getting out to support those issues that are really important to you, to knock on some voters' doors and tell them, hey, why this matters to you, and asking them to make a decision for themselves. And so there are more opportunities in your local community to get involved, and we encourage everybody to go over, visit our site, enter your email address and your zip code, and we'll be sure to plug you into an event. We're at votingwhileblack.com.
What's the best way to support candidates in states that we may not reside in? Like, for example, you mentioned Andrew in Florida, Ben in Maryland, and Stacey in Georgia.
Yeah, so we've got call programs, we've got text programs. There is a way to get involved everywhere. And trust me, if you want to get involved with Color of Change PAC, we will make sure to plug you in. We don't leave any stone unturned, and we have a saying amongst ourselves of leave nothing on the table. So make sure that every option has been tried, and our goal is really to engage our members. So we do some what we call our sister state programs. So we've got folks in New Orleans, we've got folks in LA that are helping out in Nevada and Florida, folks that are helping out in Georgia. We've got a big program coming up in Georgia on October 20th in Atlanta, my hometown, so I'm really excited about that for Stacey Abrams. And so there's lots of ways to get involved. Like I said, if you visit the site, votingwhileblack.com, we'll make sure to get you involved, contact you about all of the things that are happening locally and all of the things that are happening nationally. And so we make sure with our online to offline organizing strategy that we start talking to our members online, and then we ask them to do things offline as well. So to take part in our text program, in which you can send text messages to voters in Georgia to make sure that they get out to vote for Stacey Abrams, or our text program in Florida and Michigan, where you can make sure that folks are getting out to vote for Andrew or Garland Gilchrist for Lieutenant Governor.
I got a question about the voting aspect.
Mm-hmm.
We know in past elections, votes get missed. I don't know, they disappear. You have to do recounts and recounts after recounts. I don't know if this is in the works, but I just want to throw this out there. Or is it going to be a time where technology evolves in the election and the voting process where people can place votes online? Because when you start getting down to these important races, things just seem to, stuff seems to happen to votes. So how do we, evolve the technology aspect to where, you can log in and have a login, a password, and you can vote for your candidate right there online on your cell phone, maybe on your computer. Is that even in conversation?
Well, I wish we were the organization that influenced those decisions. Quite frankly, we haven't had conversations about that. We deal with the system as is right now, challenging it, of course, pushing it forward. But I think that is much more forward than where we are right now. I think right now that is very ideal. I do everything online, pay my bills online, so that would be great. If you could auto cast your ballot. Right. I like automatic bill pay. So if you just got a reminder of like, hey, cast your ballot today, that'd be great. But I think Black voters are the surge. And so when we talk about any time that we show up in record numbers, that really offsets any chance of voter fraud and things like that. And so our goal is really to make sure that we get our people to the polls early. As you know, things happen on election day and people just can't make it. It rains, all kinds of things.
And not to cut you off, but that was kind of where I was headed with that, because we know on election day some people can't get off work. Some people might have forgot about early voting, may not have been able to make it, whatever the case may be. Things happen all the time in day-to-day life. So that idea of just having that option out there, I think would help. It would get more voters because if somebody can do it from their phone or what have you, I believe that would even boost the amount of voters that you get because it's not so much of the hassle of trying to get off work and trying to get your kids situated or trying to get a ride here and, you know, now you have Uber and, you know, I mean, I just think it's more convenient. It would be more convenient for voters.
Oh, yeah, we're always about convenience because, as you know, the more convenient it is for our folks to vote, the more polling places that are open, the closer they are to our neighborhoods, the more likely our folks show up. So, as you know, that's some Jetson age stuff that you're talking about. But looking forward to it, Taj. I want to be on that committee when it happens. Count me in.
Out there.
Count me in.
One last one. I always ask people this question because, you know, everybody gives a different answer. So I'm going to ask you from a voting standpoint, what are the 3 keys to making this a successful midterm election for the Democratic Party for Black voters?
Acknowledge us, talk to us early and often, knock on our doors, be in our communities, and help us to vote early. I think we help each other, and I think it is up to us as a community to make sure that we are voting early, making sure that our family members, our friends, as I said, really diving in on your network to make sure that everybody in your network has gotten out to the polls.
I want to thank Shannon Talbert.
Thanks, Taj.
Change of Color PAC. I want y'all to go online. Give the website again.
Sure. It's Color of Change PAC, and our website is votingwhileblack.com.